Hello.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to our Hunger Games movie review. The Hunger Games talks a lot about society. And, a society that is very different from our own, which is, it's a sociologist's dream to, review the Hunger Games.
The movie Hunger Games represents 3 different sociological perspectives, and today we're going to be looking at one of them, symbolic interactionism. The Hunger Games is set up as a society that represents our modern society today. It's set up between 12 districts, the 12th district being one of the poorest and the 1st district being one of the least poor. In the Hunger Games, there is this tribute that they do annually. And in the movie, this is, I believe, the 74th annual reaping. And the reaping is where they take 2 children between the ages of 12 and 18 from each district, each of the 12 districts that are set up in the movie. And 2 of these randomly selected people from each district go into the Hunger Games. The reaping in this case represents how the less privileged that you are, the less it benefits you, because it's set up to where if they ask for more food, their names are entered in the draw more times. For example, there was a boy whose name was in there, I believe, 44 times because he had to keep asking for food. Whereas, if you were to live in District 1, if you're more privileged, you wouldn't have to do these things.
So in the movie, they started off and they once the Hunger Games begins, they're oh, happy Hunger Games. And that phrase is ironic because it's said by the people of the high class that wear all these colors and they have all these extravagant looks to their appearance and stuff like that. And they're saying oh, happy Hunger Games to the people that are lower class, that are wearing all these dark colors and in all this poor impoverished areas, and they see the Hunger Games, the rich people, they see the Hunger Games as this entertainment, this special event, this Olympics or Super Bowl type thing, when it's real people that are the lower class people, in the Hunger Games, dying and starving, surviving or trying to survive, and they see it as a joke, a little fun game. They don't see those people as actual human beings. So it's that's how Happy Hunger Games is ironic.
One of our next words is tribute. In each of the 12 districts, 2 people were forced to be tributed in order to keep peace and to keep tradition, which it's been in place for 74 years, and no one can do a thing to stop it. And sad.
So at the beginning of the Hunger Games, before the games start, they say, oh, may the odds be ever in your favor. And this is kind of a good luck sentiment, how, people might say before games or matches or whatever. But the reason why this is ironic is because, well, if they're saying it to everybody that's participating in the Hunger Games, but the odds are already skewed from the beginning, even way before the games even start, because if you're in District 1 or 2, the higher districts with the richer people, then the odds are more in your favor because you're rich, you're going to get all these supplies and stuff like that, but it's not in your favor if you're in District 11, 12, the bottom barrel, people. Not that I think that they're bottom barrel people, but in the context of the movie, then it's not in their favor, so it's rigged.
So, in the Hunger Games, there's a reoccurring symbol of the Mockingjay. In the beginning of the movie, Katniss finds a pin that has a Mockingjay on it, and she gives it to her sister as a symbol of good luck, a symbol of hope. Although when the draw comes, her sister gets chosen, so it's kind of it seems to become a bad omen, but Katniss carries it with her throughout the movie, and one of the men who's preparing them for the Hunger Games, before she enters the game, he allows her to have the pin on in the game because she still sees it as a symbol of hope throughout the whole game. So later on in the game, as they progress, Katniss runs into a little girl named Rue, and Katniss and Rue used the physical mockingjays that there were in the dome of the game as a symbol of like communication and connection, and it's like throughout the whole thing it's the symbol of hope all the way through the end, to where when Katniss wins the games, even when she's back at District 12, it's like throughout the whole movie it carried this title of like being a symbol of hope. The mockingjays, the pin and the physical bird.
So by the end of the movie, Katniss and Peeta, they have some berries, and this was right after the President Snow was like, oh, actually, you can only have one person die now, after everything before, where they said 2 people from the same district could live. Now they're retracting that statement. Why this scene was so important is because it shows that they would be not listening to President Snow, In this entire game, the Game Masters, President Snow, the other guy, they were controlling every single action, from where Katniss would go to whether they killed the guy with the dogs or whether a tree would grow, They were in control of every single situation. Sure, they didn't know how the outcome was going to go, but they knew that someone was going to win. Someone was going to be left alive. And since 2 people were left alive, they wanted, to keep following tradition, to keep following order, and retracted their statement. And when Katniss and Peeta decided that they were going to eat both the berries, like they were both going to eat it, that's a destruction of what, the creators created. They are not following what they want them to do, they're actively dissuading them. And they completely caved in right as soon as Peeta and Katniss decided they were going to eat him. They immediately said both of them won, and now they have to deal with those changes, and yeah.
If all of that being said, if we're going back and taking what we talked about and looking at it in the perspective of a symbolic interactionalist, then we would give this movie a 5 out of 5 symbols. And that's because, when you're a symbolic interactionalist, nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. But as we're going through the movie and looking for these symbols, you can see that these symbols hold meaning.
Okay, I give it 4.5 out of 5 symbols because I think that it did have really good symbols, but not each one of them held as much meaning as others. Like, for example, the last symbol of them eating the berries, that was my favorite because it symbolized them like breaking free from this like imprisonment of their society. But then on the other hand, there were other symbols that were less like, they held less meaning. There were some that were more obvious than others. So I give it a 4 out of 5.
So piggybacking off what my fellow sociologist has claimed, I would say that some of the, interactions were more obvious than others. The ones that were more obvious, it was a little bit more enjoyable to watch. It was more enjoyable to find out. Some were more subversive, but others were not as obvious, which also made it like mean less and seem less. It was harder to, understand.
And that's it.